Indie Beacon Radio with hostess Denise Bryson. Welcome to Indie Beacon Radio, where creative souls can find help in marketing their creations. You can send questions for each show on Twitter using the hashtag IndieBeacon. Now sit back and enjoy learning about our guest for this show.
Welcome everyone to our show tonight. I have the privilege to be interviewing today. I'm interviewing P A de Voe. She is a mystery writer. Is that correct?
That's right. Historical mysteries.
Historical mystery. So welcome to our show today. This is, and we always encourage everybody to drop everything and read. So Pam, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I am an anthropologist, and early on after I got my MA in anthropology, I got that in psychological anthropology, what they call now psychological anthropology. I'm very fascinated by China, and actually more like the Chinese writing, which is pretty interesting, but impossible to learn on my own. So I decided to go and get a PhD in that, in Asian studies. And from that, I did, in my PhD, I did field work for a year. I lived in a village, in a small town in Taiwan. And then, of course, life happens and you need a job. So I as an anthropologist, I became an applied anthropologist. That means I didn't work in an academic institution. Well, I did teach part-time in academic institutions over the years, but my main job was to work with refugees. As an anthropologist, I worked with the refugee leaders. And when I retired from that, I went back to my passion for Chinese history. And I particularly like the Ming Dynasty because it's fascinating for many reasons. It's kind of sandwiched in between two non-Chinese dynasties. Mm-hmm. And it is a Chinese dynasty. Also the first emperor was strange and brilliant, probably charismatic, and extremely deadly. So he made a very kind of volatile situation perfect for a mystery writer.
Oh, wow, yes. I see, because you've written maybe, I think this particular set of books has about 6 books in it. Is that correct?
I have, yeah. I've written 6 books in the Ming. 3 of them are a trilogy for young adults, like teenagers. Yes. Mm-hmm. And that's so that they would learn more about China and understand more about it, using stories.
How did you get started writing?
You know, that was an interesting question you had. I guess I've wanted to write fiction for a long time because I first wrote the first book in the trilogy when my daughter was in her early teens. And I thought this would be a good way for her and her friends to learn about China, right? Mm-hmm. But before that, I had written a book, which I have no idea where it is because, you know, it's on that old technology, one of those little floppies.
Oh, yeah.
You can't find it anywhere anymore.
Oh, wow.
And I guess I've been interested in it, but, you know, it takes a lot to write, as you know, because you write.
Yeah.
And, you know, then you work and you have family and just went off in another direction. But when you have that interest in it, it's always there. You know, it's
always
so in
there.
Our head. Yeah. It'll come out. And so finally.
And you'll find yourself jotting stuff down.
Pardon me?
You'll find yourself writing something down on a piece of paper or something always, or you have to keep something with you.
Yeah, that's true.
Now, where do you get your story ideas from? I know you get them from China, but with that being said, and you say you get them from the Ming, because Ming he had his own dynasty. So was he like one of their leaders in China at the time when you're writing in that period, right?
Right. The Hongwu emperor, the first emperor, he established his the dynasty in 1368. And I guess what it is I like Chinese stories.
Mm-hmm.
As you know, their literature and the stories that they told each other and they wrote for each other. Excuse me, these allergies. The today, when we get together with people, we watch TV. We may get together for a movie, but in that time they didn't have all that technology, of course, 600 years ago. So they wrote stories and told stories to each other. And so the people who told stories to each other, they would tell stories. If they were a magistrate, they liked to tell stories about crime, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I'm looking over at my book. There's a man named Van Gulik who translated a couple of novels written by a Chinese magistrate earlier in the centuries. And I read his things and just loved them. And then I have watched and read over time different stories, and they write stories about ghosts. So you can imagine how much fun it was when people got together, right? They're sharing these stories that they made up, and some stories based on their experiences.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought, well, I enjoy those stories a lot. Maybe somebody else would like a contemporary spin on that.
Spin on it, yeah.
Yeah, in that, not that they are using contemporary ideas, but they're written for, a non-Chinese audience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What a brilliant, that was a brilliant way to bring that out and to write about it and to take people on a journey, because that's really what through each of those books we get to go on a journey of the Chinese Ming dynasty. So we get to go on that journey without ever being there, and you do a wonderful job of doing that.
Yeah, I'm glad you saw that, because that's what it is. We know over time, as an anthropologist, looking at people from pre-literate cultures to today, we've always learned through stories. We love stories. That's how we entertain each other. Even if we're just watching TV, it's because we love the stories, right?
Yes, exactly.
And that's the whole thing. That's the journey.
Yeah.
So I can help people, like my idea with the trilogy, that was the first set I wrote on the Ming things. And it's to get those kids, and also, like adults have said that they like them too. So it's not just for kids, but I was thinking of my daughter and her friends, because they're not going to sit down and read a history book. I mean, as interesting as a history book can be, it's not something that a lot of people want to spend their spare time reading. Exactly. But they will read a novel. They will read short stories. My last book, Judge Liu's Case Files, that's a series of short stories. So they can be read in half an hour, 45 minutes.
Yeah, people love that. People love that. It's something
we're
that
busy.
they can get through.
Yeah. So that's.
And have a great story.
Yeah, and in those stories, I hope that they entertain people and that they're really engaged in the story, and at the same time, they learn about the culture and just where people came from. We're all part of our history. We're not just cut off at the roots, right?
Exactly.
Our history is a part of every one of us.
Yeah. And
China is today a very modern country, but it has its own history, which is quite different from ours.
Yeah.
Collectivity is much more important. So in my stories, you see a lot put on family, friends, and the community, because that's what people consider the key, whereas we consider the individual the key. Yeah. It's not that they didn't want individual to compete, because it was very important for the family, for the individual to do well. But community, collectivity is very important. In fact, in their law, we would consider it very weird. In their law, if, say my daughter, okay, I'm a female, so let's count me out. It's very male-oriented. Say I was a man, and my son had committed a crime. Say he murdered somebody. Say even an accident. if he had murdered somebody.
Mm-hmm.
So he would be found guilty, but I would also be found guilty because I'm the father and I'm responsible for his behavior.
Wow.
So I am held responsible for him. I don't get away with saying, well, he doesn't live with me anymore, or, well, I didn't know he was doing this, or something like that. You are held responsible because you're in the family, you are the head. So community also means community in the family, right?
Right.
So that's a real big difference in law.
Yeah.
We only talk about the individual. We don't blame anybody else because we consider that you have your own responsibilities.
Yeah.
So this is something that the Judge Lou stories come up with all the time.
Yeah. We're getting ready to take a short break and hear some wonderful from our wonderful sponsors, and we will be right back.
Okay.
I'm Rox Berkey.
And I'm Charles Brakefield. We're award-winning co-authors, Brakefield and Berkey, of the Enigma book series. There are 10 books in the series, with book number 11 planned for release in January 2020.
Each story has a central technology focus ranging from identity theft to cryptocurrency and now AI wars. These adult techno thrillers pit cyber good guys against cyber thugs across the darknet.
In our world, technology is today's weapon of choice. You can enjoy ebook format, paper, or Audible. We want your feedback.
Until the next story, thank you.
Thanks.
Well, hello there, my friends. My name is Randy James, independent voiceover producer in the Dallas, Texas area, available to write and record a 30-second commercial, much like the one you're hearing right now. It's a great way to help increase awareness and exposure to your book title. It's easy to do. Simply call me and we'll brainstorm on a few ideas, and in a few hours, I'll whip something up and send you a digital file ready to use. Remember, call or text me, Randy James, at 214-762-1942.
Welcome to IndieLector.store, an online bookstore where the discriminating reader can find award-winning books. IndieLector.store is not a big corporation, so we can give up to 80% of the sales directly to the author. Help us support them by buying a great book at IndieLector.store.
Hello, I am the author and poet Denise Bryson. I am the author of The Things That Cross My Mind, Love's Reality, both in book and audio form. I am also noted as one of the best poets of 2011. I have 2 new projects coming up. One is the Blinky series, where Blinky tells us all about our coins and our bills for our children. I also have a book coming out called Say Ye. It's quotes from Denise Bryson, just inspirational and that will help you along the way.
Welcome back to Indie Beacon Radio. Don't forget to like us, follow us, or subscribe to one of our many channels. Now, here is your host for today's show.
Hello, welcome back to our show. We have been interviewing P A de Voe. She is the author of the Ming Dynasty, which is Deadly Relations, No Way to Die. And then she has Judge Lou's Case Files and Lotus Shoes and Trapped and Judge Lou's Dilemma. She has a host of books. She has a host of books that she has written. And so she is not a new author, but she is an author that has had great success, and so you want to support such a great author. So let's continue to talk about. I want to talk about your trilogy, the ones that you have done for the young people, for the young adults, and that is Hidden, Warm, and Trapped.
Right.
Let's talk about those.
Well, this trilogy is set in the year 1380. Because 1380 was a very horrific year for the country. And so at that time, the emperor, who was brilliant, but as I said, but also paranoid, decided he needed to purge his officials of anybody he even thought might be treasonous. And treason could be counted in many ways. So I call it the Mayhua trilogy because Mayhua is the girl. Mm-hmm. And her father was a magistrate, and he heard that somebody wanted to get rid of him. And see, that's perfect, right? It's a perfect setup for getting rid of your rival or somebody that you don't like, because all you have to do is find an excuse to accuse them of treason. And that's not too hard to do. And at that time, in 1380, what the Ming Dynasty's emperor did was he executed everybody in 7 generations. So like if he had been found guilty of treason, if he had been accused of treason, and the emperor decided that he was therefore treasonous, not only would he die, Mei Hua would die, his only child. Everybody in his generation, his brothers and sisters and their families would die. So like 3 generations up from him, his father, his grandfather, and his great-grandfather, and all of their family, right? Yeah. So he sent his daughter away because he thought, how is he going to fight this? He had to fight it, but he didn't want her to be there. So he sends her away. But she has to go incognito because if they knew who she was and where she was, she would still be executed.
Exactly.
So she went away incognito. So she's pretending to be a mute peasant. And she's going hundreds of miles. She's being sent to a friend of his to live in there as his friend's niece. Mm-hmm. On the journey, she's kidnapped and is thrown into bondage. And from there, the trilogy begins. Mm-hmm. Now she's in bondage and she has to work her way. It's sort of a coming of age story because she learns to trust herself and her own abilities. Mm-hmm. And she learns to trust other people. She learns the importance of friendship, the importance of family. It's her journey. And then I hopefully will take the people on their journey to realize that those things are important to them too. Yeah. And they can do things that seem impossible at the time. They just think about it, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that was how I put it together. Oh, but she's going to be doing all these things because she's very active. It's an adventure mystery trilogy. So she can't have bound feet. Now, bound feet were not common in the middle class, which is what she was. Mm-hmm. But they were becoming more common at that time. So why would she not have bound feet? Well, she's bi-ethnic. Her mother is a Uyghur. That's a group, a Muslim group, lives in the western part. Her father is a Han. That's the main Chinese group. The Uyghur don't do bound feet at all. They didn't do them ever. Her mother had died in childbirth, so she was very, dear to the husband, to her father, to Mei Hua's father. Mm-hmm. So to explain all that, because it doesn't come up in the stories, to explain all that, I wrote a prelude, and that's Lotus Shoes. That's a short story, and it explains all about lotus feet. They call them lotus feet because they make these beautiful, absolutely stunning shoes with the embroidery. But a lotus foot, ideally, is only 4 inches long. Think about 4 inches. That's like what, one of your fingers, maybe? Or is that 3 inches? 4 inches, I think. But it's really small. Even if you're a small person, that's small. And so why does she not have it? So I wrote the prelude to explain that. Lotus Shoes, the prelude, explains why she can run around and do all these things. So that leads you into and that has to happen when she's a child, right? So the stories, the trilogy, I hope it inspires people, not only young people, but even other people, older people, to learn more about China, but also to learn to have more confidence and faith in themselves. Yeah. You can do it. You just analyze what the problem is, look at it, look at what you can do, make choices, and hopefully best choices.
That's really a great way for somebody to learn how to navigate through trials of life. Especially as a young person, these things may happen, but this is how you can make it through. Yeah. And so that's what that trilogy is really doing for people. Yeah.
And that you don't have to go it alone. You have friends, you have family. Yeah. Yeah. You can work together.
That's great. That's great. What a great I just think, wow, what a great path to take someone on. especially in that age group, the young adult age group, to take them on a path where, look, you're faced with this problem, but this is how you can navigate through it. So, I mean, that's a great way to get your readers interested in it. And thank you so much for taking us all on this journey with the Ming Dynasty and all about China and stuff like that, because some of us would never probably even think to read about that. But because you have written these books and taken us on this journey, that's a great way for us to get to learn, to expand our mind. Reading expands the mind anyway. And so that's such a great way to teach somebody about some place they may never visit at all. Yeah.
Right. And may never think of it because their lives are so full of other things.
Yeah,
so that's
exactly.
why the stories have to be interesting. They have to be fun to read, while they have that other part to them, the part to open people up to themselves and to others.
And just to see the difference, especially if you're American, just to see the difference of the culture in another country and how they view, even the family dynamics as well as the male-female dynamic. So it's a whole big difference. Yeah.
It's very, big thing.
Okay, well, we're going to go on our second break, and we're going to hear some more from our wonderful sponsors. We'll be right back.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Jerry Reedy, author of the book Heat in the Vegas Night. The book is a true inside story of a group of sophisticated blackjack players that take large sums of money from Las Vegas, led by one man, the boss, who trained a group of ex-college athletes from the Pacific Northwest to use a mirror to see the dealer's hole card in blackjack. The true story, stranger than fiction, is about casino espionage, teamwork, guts and determination, and courage. Find the book at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and Target.
Thank you for watching or listening to Indie Beacon Radio. Our sponsor, IndieLector.store, is the only bookstore that pays authors their fair share for book sales. Help authors to succeed and enjoy a great book by supporting them at IndieLector.store. Enjoy a 10% discount with coupon code SHOPPER20 at IndieLector.store. Coupon valid until December 31st, 2020. That's IndieLector.store, coupon code SHOPPER20.
The 5th Annual Authors Marketing Event. 2 days of live seminars in marketing for authors. The only organization that certifies authors in marketing. Live and free to the first 100 authors registered. Sponsored by Bubblish, empowering entrepreneurs, and Indie Lector Store, paying authors for their fair share. Head to www.2020.authorsmarketingguild.com today.
What started as a love letter to her son has become an international love letter for all parents to their children. Now you can read acclaimed author Shanalee Charbonneau's story to your children. When her son was very sick, she calmed him by singing her own song to him. She turned that song into the book, My Mama Loves Me, I'm Her Little Boy. She wrote 3 more magical books for all parents and kids 6 and under. Available at Indie Lector, Amazon, and all local and national outlets.
Authors Marketing Guild is a membership-owned organization designed to help authors succeed and learn how to better market and sell themselves and their books. Join us at authorsmarketingguild.com and receive so many benefits you'll wonder why you didn't join sooner. That's authorsmarketingguild.com.
Welcome back to Indie Beacon Radio. Don't forget to like us, follow us, or subscribe to one of our many channels. Now, here is your host for today's show.
Welcome back to our show. We have had the privilege to be interviewing the author P A de Voe, and she is a mystery writer, and she has written all about Ming China and Chinese history and things like that. So if you want to ever go on a journey about China and just know something about that country and the differences that you may even get, that you may never get there, this is a good. These are good books to read. She takes us on a journey, and we're so thankful for that. Now, what are you doing now? What is next for you?
Well, I'm writing the third story in the other series, which I call my Itinerant Scholar series. Although there are 2 protagonists, there's a male and a female. It is also written in late 1300s China. And as I said before, it's a highly gendered society. the men's world and the women's world are very separate. So I wanted, how am I going to get information in a mystery on both sides? So I needed two protagonists. So I started out with it thinking about my itinerant scholar, but I added a young woman who's actually based on a real person who lived at that time. And she's a women's doctor. She's not a midwife, she's an actual doctor. And so I'm on the third one in there, and I call it The Beggar's Den because I also have become really intrigued by beggars in that society. Beggars are very different from our beggars. It doesn't just mean somebody who begs all the time. It's the street entertainer is considered to be a beggar. The beggar could be the night watchman, because who knows the criminals better than the beggars, because they're out there all the time. They live together in a community, and they have very strong rules. Their leader can punish them if they break a rule and even execute them. Now, by law, I read a lot about Chinese law. That's not written in the law, but it's accepted that they're the leader. Just like I said, the father is responsible for the child. Well, the leader of a community is responsible for the community as well. He's not going to be killed, but he's responsible for it. So if he had a person who was a beggar in his community who committed a crime that was serious, that person could be killed. He could execute them. I thought, well, that's a really intriguing. And how did they handle marriage? And how did they handle, like who becomes a beggar? Like when do they ever get out of it? So I decided that that's what I wanted to explore next. So that's what I'm working on. I'm going to mix that up with a mystery where my women's doctor is involved with the community because she needs to come and care for people. The women in the community, right? They get sick. So yeah, that's where I'm going next. I'm very excited about it. It's a lot of fun. I love doing the research.
So what are you doing now during the pandemic and all this going on? How are you promoting your books and things like that? And how are you doing that during this time?
Well, you know what? That's a good question because my day-to-day world is basically writing, right? And doing research. So that part isn't very different, but I can't go out. You don't go to conferences, the whole Tucson thing with their book, big book event, the festival was canceled. So people don't meet. So,
right.
But right now it's mostly by Zoom and, social media. So it works out, but you do miss the personal touch, right? I mean, I'm sure you guys do too. This is great, and I think it's a great, look, we're spread all over the country, but we're coming together, so it's wonderful. Yeah. But there's something about eye to eye, nose to nose, when you really have contact with people. But it works out. It's only a little different from my normal life, I think.
That's good. Now, where can we find you at on social media and all the different places and your website and all that? Could you tell us about that and where people can find you and where they can pick your book up, where they can purchase it and things like that?
Okay. The best way is you can come to my website, P A de Voe, so that's PADEV as in Victor, OE.com. I have my books listed there. If you go to Amazon has all my books, all my historical mystery books under PA space DE space VOE. So we have to have the spaces in there or it won't come up to me.
Okay.
And I have the Maywa trilogy is on the other, others gone wide, as they say, like Kobo has it, B&N. But the other ones, I wanted it to be on KDP, with Amazon, and they don't like it if you put it in with other groups. So Amazon, it's the gorilla in the room. And I decided for those at this time, I would stay with Amazon. But you can get an ebook, a paperback, and of the last one I just put out this year, Judge Lou's Case Files, also hardback.
Okay.
Oh, and Hidden should come out in hardback soon. The first in the trilogy.
First in the trilogy.
But you can order those through Amazon too.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, P A de Voe. That's who we have been talking to today. She is the author, and it has been a pleasure to chat with you about all of your masterpieces. Thank you so much for your time and that you have shared with us tonight. Thank you for telling us about all the places that we can go and pick up your mystery books and all of that.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, you are very welcome. And so I have been your host, Denise Bryson, and we thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Denise. I enjoyed it.
Thank you for listening to Indie Beacon Radio, where creative souls can find help in marketing their creations. To learn more about Indie Beacon services, to be a guest on the show, or to advertise on our show, please visit our website.
Indie Beacon Radio with hostess Denise Bryson. Indie Beacon Radio is produced by B. Allen Bourgeois for Authors Marketing Guild LLC, copyright 2020. Voiceover by Randy James, Lydia Bello, and B. Allen Bourgeois. To be a sponsor of the show or for more information, please email us at info@authorsmarketingguild.com. To be interviewed for the show, please complete the form at radio.authorsmarketingguild.com. Music Always Rejoice by Ramcord